Hello, CT Sports Report. My name is Cody Teague, here with my partner in crime, as always, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Calicut. Chris, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing awesome, Cody. Man, we've been off of this thing for a while. Real life stinks sometimes, brother.
Yeah, real life kicks in. I'm getting married. You're an up-and-coming star in the tennis world in terms of running stuff, and both of your wife, my future wife, they're geniuses, and we're just trying to keep up. We're just trying to keep up. That's all we're trying to do. But we are here. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, everybody needs to tell Miss Leslie congratulations on graduating with her master's degree in gerontology, I believe, this past weekend from UNC Greensboro. So congratulations to her.
Absolutely. Me and Chris, more important, are back on Google Hangouts to bring you another show that maybe not be insightful, but hey, we're going to give you our opinions, and whether you like them or not, we're here to do so no matter what you think. So Chris has a wonderful show lined up for us, but before we begin, just remember, you can follow us at always as CT _sports support. That was a lot better than we've ever done in our lives. But CT _sports report on the Twitter, CT Sports Report on Facebook, and remember to follow us on YouTube, CT Sports Report there. Follow us. Relive all of our shining moments of when we started recording YouTube videos.
Absolutely, and one thing that we can actually add to this now is the little blog that I started, and this is actually a CT Sports Report blog. It's called, is that Blogger or Blogspot, whatever you want to call it. But it's CTSR Writes. CTSR Writes is our blog. And I put a little thing on there last night that we'll actually chat a little bit about here later.
Absolutely. We're going to go and lead into our favorite segment, at least one of my favorite segments of the show, since we've told you everything and how to follow us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going into Pop Tops.
Oh, it's not going to pop. Oh, never mind. My bad. Oh, well. Production.
Yeah, you don't have a real drink, so it doesn't count.
This is true. Mine was Red Bull, by the way.
But we'll go into Pop Tops, sponsored as always by 2H Brewing. Me, Leslie, my fiance, my wonderful best friend Phil Howard, making beer every 2 weeks, drinking the 15-minute IPA today to give some of his friends, and we have rave reviews. So maybe one day I'll get popular brewing beer instead of doing some sports show that'll never get popular. One way or another, I hope I get famous.
Absolutely. No, I actually had a couple of Cody's beers at an event that I hosted at the tennis center I work at, and our folks down there had absolutely nothing but fantastic things to say about it. So well done to him on his endeavors so far, and to the folks at 2H Brewing. So with that said, let's roll into the Pop Tops, ladies and gentlemen, the popular topics of the evening. First one to start off with, I think it's absolutely hilarious because his name was once synonymous with PED discussions, and this guy jiggles more than me and Cody combined.
You ain't even lying, man.
Bartolo Colon of the Mets hit his first home run in his career at the young age of 42, and it actually cleared by a decent bit, man. He hit a shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm not even sure how he got the bat over his belly. I'm not even joking about that. But as we were talking about before the show, Chris, he is the third Mets player to hit a home run over the age of 40. Not knowing who the third one is, but it doesn't matter because the first one and most important one to compare him to is the ageless.
He's got to be like 65 still playing baseball somewhere.
They said he was 45 when he hit his home run. He had to at least be 52, but that's besides the point. But, yeah, Bartolo Colon, respect from everything that he's been through. Amazing for him, and still a fantastic pitcher at the ripe age, as you said, of 42.
Absolutely. Moving along, the Kentucky Derby was this past weekend. Your winner was Nyquist, and the folks are saying that this is also another potential Triple Crown winner, as he has never lost a race in his career. Any feedback on the old horses? Did you lay down a couple of parlays, anything like that this weekend?
Well, I hope this horse wins the Triple Crown because, you know, the one who won it last year, I forget his name.
I don't. Oh, well.
It's not important. But you know what he's doing right now? He has gained over 80 pounds and basically gets paid $200,000 a pop for a horse to breed with him.
It's not a bad life.
I mean, who cares what the bets are? Just win so you can have the greatest horse life of your life.
Absolutely. No, he's having a wonderful time in retirement. Darn it, we should have segued from one horse to another with the Bartolo Colon. But I digress. Okay. So, speaking of at odds, Leicester City, the Foxes, as they call them, won the English Premier League. And are you not fantastically surprised that I knew what their nickname was?
I'm really shocked. But fantastic. This is really big for the league. I mean, to rank it's like the 16 seed winning the national championship in NCAA basketball. It is that much of a deal. Now, I know they're going to say that Leicester didn't have to play the Europa League or the Champions League, and they didn't go deep into the local cups there in England. But cups doesn't mean as much like the Capital One and the FA. A local team in England, they were able to win the Premier League is huge. It's a big deal for them because they're going to be getting a whole lot of money now. And they've already secured the cup with about 3 weeks to go, if I'm not mistaken. It's fantastic for the Foxes, and I'm super excited that soccer's on the map, betting with a 5,001 odd, Chris.
Yeah, the 5,001 was what astounded me by far. I mean, again, I'm not familiar as you are with the football, but you've heard of Leicester City, and most of the time you hear them synonymous with close to the bottom of the table. So huge surmountable odds overcame there by the Foxes. Moving on to a little golf news, ladies and gentlemen. Local North Carolina ties for this one as well. The Wells Fargo Championship was held in Charlotte this weekend at Quail Hollow Country Club. And James Hahn, I believe, may have been his first win, takes home the W in a playoff. His opponent in the playoff, Castro, apparently on his first tee shot, hacked it in the lake or the woods. And then the second tee shot, as his provisional, went into a gentleman's loafer where he had to take his shoes off to watch golf. They had to do some grounds work with the loafer to figure out where the ball exactly was supposed to go. But with that said, the 2017 PGA Championship will be held at Quail Hollow, and apparently one person that is really excited about that is Rory McIlroy, who apparently really likes the course. So,
yeah, Roy actually came in fourth. He was tied with Andrew Lupe and Phil Mickelson. So I believe that the reason the players like the course so much is because it's in a good location. It's in a big city, but a little bit away from it. And it's not a hard course, but they make it difficult enough to make it fun to watch. So, I mean, big ups to Charlotte. Charlotte, one of the fastest growing cities in America. This is going to be really fun to watch, and definitely big ups to Justin Hahn, who won that playoff there in Charlotte. I mean, golf is going to grow in North Carolina. We already have Pinehurst and Central North Carolina that's growing. Might as well just spread it to the whole state, Chris.
Absolutely. And looking forward to a variety of sports, really. Ejections this weekend, several of them actually. Yep. Number one being Bryce Harper ejected pretty much from the bench after coming out to celebrate a home run with his teammates. And I think you had a little story about Mr. Harper.
Well, yeah, my thing with Bryce Harper is that he did get ejected, and rightfully so. But the same week that he got ejected, he ended up going on the team bus, coming out with a wad of money, and giving it to a homeless person on the side of the road. So Bryce Johnson made up for his thing.
Harper.
Excuse me. Woo. Wow. That was
wrong
sport. Wrong everything. Anyway, but Bryce Harper made up for his thing in terms of doing that, but B has made it very clear that You don't do anything outside of their guidelines, and you do not get ejected. This is the sport that is the most clearest in, that you have set guidelines, you don't follow those, you're out. So what he was thinking, I don't know, because with the MLB.
Right, but if I was walked 16 times in a series like he had been, I would probably be a little bit miffed too. Just saying. And literally, he was walked 16 times in, I believe, that 4-game series with the Cubs.
When you are the best player on the field and you make contact with the ball every time you swing, you do not let one man beat you. You put him on base, and you follow up with the next man. That is the game of baseball. If they don't like it, then he's in the wrong sport, and he needs to leave because I don't like him anyway.
He is a cocky little fella. I will give him that. But one of the biggest rising up-and-coming stars in the league for sure. Moving on to the Warriors, and a little more news on the Warriors here in just a moment. But Sean Livingston was supposed to be, former supposed to be Duke star before a bad knee injury sidelined him. Was ejected from last night's game for arguing a call, which was quite honestly very arguable because he got whacked in the head and absolutely nothing was done about it. He went over to the referee. I can't remember the referee's name. Thank God it's not Joey Crawford because that would have been hilarious. But he had a few choice words that the camera was able to catch and was fairly quickly rang up with 2 T's and sent out of the building. So Warriors ended up winning game 4, so they're up 3-1. Actually gave a little bit of time for Steph Curry. And David Ortiz of the Bo Sox also ejected for arguing balls and strikes, which you're not supposed to do anyway. But if you look at the different ESPN, Fox, all the little strike zones that they put on television, this ball was absolutely in left field as compared to where that little box is. So Big Papi had a little bit of a gripe there as well. But ejection's a big part of the weekend. And our final note for the Pop Tops, Stephen Curry of the Warriors not only won the MVP, Cody, not only did he win it for the second time in a row, it was a unanimous vote. What do you think about that one?
I mean, is there any question is my thing. The man can shoot. If he crosses half court, he is borderline within range. Even beyond half court, he's about halfway within range. The dude has honed his skills more than anybody else that me and you have watched growing up, and that's hands down the truth. I think we both can agree on that. But the kid knows how to play the game. He knows what his skills are. Close to him in my mind, that would have been close to him in terms of winning the MVP. I have no problems with this whatsoever.
And I definitely agree with that. And you have all the different media members that are saying, well, if another person that was a little bit bigger, stronger, more outspoken were doing the same antics that he does on the court, then, they wouldn't. There would not be a unanimous vote. But since he's the small, lovable, likable kid, that his cockiness is, cute, so to speak, instead of, in a negative connotation. I think that's the reason you sort of get that. But with that argument aside, congratulations to Steph Curry on the unanimous MVP vote. Again, first time that this has ever happened. And to round out the top 3, Kawhi Leonard, much deserved, finished second of the Spurs, and LeBron James finished third.
Exactly how I would have had him ranked. I love Kawhi Leonard. He still drives his old busted-up pickup truck to games and practice. So big ups to him and LeBron. When you figure out your hairline, we'll start talking about you.
Absolutely. Now, moving along, keeping with the NBA theme for the first half or so of the show, we'll recap a little NBA playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. Our Charlotte Hornets did make the playoffs as a 6th seed to face the Miami Heat as the 3 seed, which the Eastern Conference very, very closely contested this year. The 3 through the 6 seed had all of exactly the same record. It just came into head-to-head action on who was seated where. This one went 7, so about 2 or 3 more than I thought would happen, quite personally. So congratulations to the Hornets on a really good season, and with Coach Steve Clifford, who I believe finished 2nd or 3rd, I believe 3rd in the Coach of the Year voting. They're looking positively for the future. And again, big things happening in Buzz City.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only thing we need to worry about is Kemba Walker, who is having his surgery in the offseason here. I believe that's going to be a big upgrade once he gets the rehab going and get everything started. But, I mean, he's the point man. He's the one that gets everything going. We have other pieces around him, I believe, now. It just we just got to get 5 players on the court who know what they're doing. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I still think that we need to get Jordan out. That's just me, but moving on, Chris, go ahead.
Walker actually finished 2nd in the voting for Most Improved Player of the Year, next to McCollum for the Trailblazers. So, good stuff there. All of his percentages were up, and hopefully with his surgery, which happened a couple days ago and was successful, he'll be back and better than ever next year. Continuing in the Eastern Conference, Atlanta beat Boston 4-2 in a really ugly series. Not a whole lot going on there in the 4-5 matchup. Cleveland pretty much a clean sweep and rout of the Detroit Pistons. And Toronto, in the only other one that went 7 in the first round, defeated the Indiana Pacers. Any news on those? Any opinions on those matchups, Cody?
I mean, not really. I mean, the Eastern Conference is by far probably the worst it's ever been in the NBA since the start of things. So it's not really a surprise anything that's happened. Most of the entertainment is going on in the Western Conference, but even then, you still have your elite teams going on. So no big surprises, no big stories for me. I'm just happy we're finally getting the good basketball because, honestly, between Toronto and Indiana and Charlotte and Miami had one of the best series until the last game where Charlotte got absolutely trumped by 30 almost, which is just not a good thing for the Eastern Conference. I hate to say it like that, but, I mean, moving on, we've had a great NBA playoffs, and this has been great to watch so far.
Most definitely. Moving to the Western Conference first round, the Warriors beat Houston 4-1, and Houston being probably one of the more disappointing teams of the year considering who's on that roster. The Clippers lost to the Trailblazers basically to really bad luck. If you remember, Steph Curry got hurt, and then the Clippers were like, fantastic. We have a chance against the Warriors in the next round. And then about 3 hours later, Chris Paul broke his hand. I'm like, you talk about the highest 3 hours for a franchise, followed by the lowest directly after that. And then soon after that, they announced Blake Griffin would be out for the remainder of the playoffs as well. So that pretty much spelled doom for the Clippers, and Portland won the series 4-2. Oklahoma City over Dallas 4-1. Fairly dominant. Dallas was able to, fight a little bit. You still have Dirk and Darren Williams and a fairly good cast of folks down there. Mark Cuban was told or said that Oklahoma City has no star besides Kevin Durant, that Darren Westbrook was not a star. That pretty much spelled the end for them as well. I think they were just trying to stir the pot. But all that being said, 4-1 OKC, and then a 4-game sweep of the Memphis Grizzlies for the San Antonio Spurs. No big surprise there. Grizzlies had a good season, but were very much injury ravaged during the playoff and the last part of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, the San Antonio Spurs, I mean, they're just a bunch of old fogies out here playing basketball. Just like, hey, we're going to let you tire yourselves out. We got a deep enough bench and a bunch of old people who know what they're doing. We're going to tire you out and win the game. By far, this is my favorite team to watch just because of pure fundamentals. With Mr. Fundamental himself, Tim Duncan, I mean, it's just hard to root against the Spurs, Chris. It really is.
It is. Unfortunately, Mr. Duncan not having a great series right now. Went scoreless in his last game for the first time in his playoff career and only have 4 points a game before that. So showing his age a little bit, letting the new guys come in and do a little bit more of the work. So good for the Spurs that, they're working the big three out, Parker, Ginobili, and Duncan, and bringing a new sense of the big three. And I would say, Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green, and then a couple other folks there on the Spurs. Moving on to the conference semifinals, Cleveland in another sweep, the only team who has not lost a game in the playoffs. Over Atlanta, I pretty much saw this one coming. Atlanta's not really impressive, in my opinion. They basically had 2 players all year, maybe 3. They just had that mentality about them. I didn't think Cleveland would have a whole lot of trouble. Miami and Toronto currently tied at 2 apiece. And moving to the West, OKC and the San Antonio Spurs tied at 2 apiece. And the Golden State Warriors are leading the Portland Trailblazers 3-1 right now. What do you see coming out of these, and who's going to make it to the conference finals?
Well, we'll definitely have Golden State and San Antonio in the East. I don't believe that's any question.
So I guess the question is Miami or Toronto in the East of going to the finals, that is.
I have to say Cleveland. For some reason, they just seem to be riding some huge chip on their shoulder to where them as a town who has struggled with both basketball and football cannot seem to get off the ground. The football team is just irrelevant. They are the last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. I just feel like they have something to prove, and they're really showing that. But the East Coast Conference does not compare to the West Coast Conference in the NBA right now. There is no comparison. There's no way whichever team gets to the Eastern, who wins the East and makes it to the NBA Finals, there's no way either team is going to win. I mean, the champion's coming out of the West Coast no matter what.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. The only team from the East that could potentially make a run, I think, is Cleveland. And for this reason only, is they're shooting almost 50% from three-point range for the entire playoffs. They have been on the absolute
that does not
fire.
Last. That does not last. You are going to get to a team who will eventually put pressure on you, who knows how to play defense unlike the Eastern Conference, and it's over. It's completely over for them. LeBron, they were talking about on all the major networks how LeBron forgot how to do a jump shot. Okay? I mean, that's just absurd to me. But when you go to talking about that from them hitting over 40% behind the three-point line, it's not going to last. There's no problem about that. If the Cavaliers make it to the finals, they lose in 5. They lose in 5. They only win 1 game. Okay. So that's it. Go ahead.
All right. But the reason I say Cleveland almost has a chance is because I think they have a newfound sort of motivation with Coach Tyronn Lue, who I loved as a player, as a point guard, undersized guy, big heart, extremely smart guy. And if you look at what his coaching style has done, it has freed up Kevin Love. Kevin Love looked confused under David Blatt and was not utilized correctly, and where I think Kevin Love now has a lot more freedom under Ty Lue. And we'll see how that materializes in the Eastern Conference Finals, which I'm saying is probably going to be against Miami. So you get old team versus current team for LBJ, and then probably, as you said, Spurs and Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. So we'll update that as we go along. Speaking of Miami Heat and Dwayne Wade, if you saw our Facebook page or Twitter page last night, yours truly posted a little article because I'll sort of preface the situation like this. They were in Toronto for Game 3 or Game 4, whichever one it was. I believe it was Game 3. And the little girl began singing, "Oh, Canada." Dwayne Wade decided his shooting pregame ritual was running long and was not completely over, and proceeded to take about 4 more jump shots after the girl was singing. So about 15 to 20 seconds. Did you see this video and situation, Cody?
I did see the video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let you finish your thought, and of course I'll jump in with mine because at least from what I saw, it wasn't just Dwayne Wade. It's just Dwayne Wade that kept going. That's just me. But go ahead and preface the rest of it, Chris. Go ahead.
All right. So the article I based everything on really respect and tradition, more or less. Say you're at a baseball game, you're at a basketball game, you get settled in your seat, and then the PA announcer says, oh, you got to get up, time for the national anthem. You stand up, put your hand over your heart, even if you like, or you just look around, look on your phone, whatever the case may be. Now, the players, to me, should be at a slightly higher standard. They're the ones that are getting paid to do said sport and should, at least be acting like professionals and should give the proper respect to whatever location they're in. This being an American team in Canada or, vice versa. But, should players be punished? I don't necessarily think so. But again, it did not look good for Wade. And when he talked to the media after the game, he never said the two crucial words that could have got him off the hook very easily, and that I'm sorry. He basically said, oh, I'm not that guy, no disrespect, no sorry in his statement whatsoever. So, to me, they should be more respectful, more traditional in what this age-old practice has been throughout the years. And I'll talk about a more positive light and situation that I ended up the article with after Cody. I'm very interested in hearing his 2 cents here because I assume it's the complete opposite from mine.
Yeah, here's the thing. First of all, in terms of talking about Wade and shooting and all that stuff, first of all, Dwayne Wade was the only one who didn't stop, okay? Even the Raptors players were caught off guard, and everybody was hustling to the line to pay their respects when the little girl started singing. Now, I believe if this would have been a recording, it would not have been as big of a problem, but since we have a little girl singing the anthem, that's going to change things a little bit because you don't want to hurt a little girl's feelings. That's understandable. But my thing is, and this was the preference, I hate to compare the NBA to NASCAR, but I'm going to, in terms of funding, what should be done, what should we do. But, Chris, in terms of going political a little bit, first of all, NASCAR almost, and the military itself, all flyovers for a little bit until they saved enough money for the Department of Defense to be able to fund themselves. Am I correct on that?
To my knowledge, yes. I hadn't heard anything differently. I'm not extremely familiar with that. Go ahead.
All right, but they had talked about canceling flyovers due to the fact that we needed to save money because there's no need to pay for planes to fly over sporting events, football games, and NASCAR being your two big ones.
Right.
My thing is that understand that we are trying to pay homage to past veterans, current veterans, both in Canada and the United States, and also in different countries, but is playing the national anthem and trying to show you respect for something that a lot of people doesn't care about until Memorial Day or Veterans Day. Is that really a big deal? Should we even be playing the national anthems at games unless we're at the Olympics where you're actually representing your country? Because, Chris, are American. We know that. I mean, half the Spurs team doesn't even know what the national anthem is probably because they're from Spain, Argentina, and Brazil. So, I mean, does the national anthem have a spot at sporting events when not all the athletes are even American?
Well, you have to go back to what I was saying in my article and sort of what I started with a couple seconds ago, and that's just a simple word, and that's tradition. This was started hundreds of years ago whenever organized league sports began. Whether that be it's sung or as technology went, played. I mean, yes, we have cheapened it by even recording it or whatever. So to your point, hooray, we've cheapened it just to get it out of the way. We've shortened it and, quickened it up to get it out of the way. So importance actually probably has gone down. But talking to your other point, your international players that are here for a reason. This is the area that gave them the chance to play professionally and to make their millions of dollars So in my mind, they should pay respect to what that has been given to them.
The U.S. of A., except for soccer, of course, and a few other minor things, they have gave you the right to get paid more money.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you get paid more money to stand up and pay homage to a flag that doesn't represent me. That's just me. Like I said, I'm an American. We both know that, me and you are on both different sides of the spectrum here. But to me, this is not a big deal. And that's all I have to say about it. The man messed up. The pregame was messed up. I have a lot of respect for Dwayne Wade, one of the greatest players in the NBA, especially in our time, Chris. Mm-hmm. No reason to look past this. The man made a mistake. He eventually came out and said, I'm sorry, just in case you want to put that in your little article. Ooh, just to say.
That must have happened today because it definitely was not there last night.
Well, I like to throw stuff on you and surprise you in the middle of the show. So there you go.
This is true. Speaking of Dwayne Wade, we'll move forward a little bit. That man has absolutely turned back the clock during his playoff run this year. He looked like the Dwayne Wade of, 2008, 2009?
Yeah, he laid down a 5-time slamma-jamma the other night. He played thousands and if not millions of times on your major sports networks the other day. It is ridiculous. He is a man-possessed. This is the only team that can beat Cleveland in the finals. Just saying. Toronto doesn't have a chance.
Probably right. But, again, kudos to Wade for turning back the clock a bit. I'll have to give him his due when I have to tear him down a little bit. I got to build him back up. So I wanted to have a little bit of balance there, just like Fox News. Wait a minute. That's not even funny. But So, again, just a quick thing. Check out the article on our Twitter and Facebook and on my personal Facebook at Chris Callicutt as well. You'll start seeing a few more of those opinion editorial type things as well as just coverage. So, be sure to look out for those. Moving to my little area of expertise, the WWE, wrestling, as we call it down here in the South. Guess who's going to be at Monday Night Raw next week, ladies and gentlemen, in Greensboro, North Carolina? These guys.
These guys right here.
These guys.
Woo!
All right, so if you see a guy in a referee shirt holding up a big card that has like a 1, 2, and 3 on it after the referees count, that'll be me. I'm going to go all out with this one. We'll also provide a full report of the Superstars tapings that preempt Raw. We'll send those to Wrestling Inc., and hopefully you will see those down there with our good friends, Raj Kiri, Sean Rossett, and the crew from Wrestling Inc. As always, for your wrestling news, check out those guys. They have a fantastic post-Monday Night Raw podcast, as well as good shows on Wednesday and Thursday as well. So, news coming out of WWE this week is they basically started cleaning house. And I don't think house is clean yet. I think there's probably another 5 or 6 that are going to be announced by the end of the month. Your post-WrestleMania season is about the time where this happens. They announced 8 releases, and I'll go down the list real quick. And just stop me if you have a point, Cody, in between. Cameron, kind of useless. Never really cared for her. El Torito, a mini wrestler that had a program with Hornswoggle, who also got released. So Vince McMahon's son was essentially released, if you remember that storyline. That's pretty bad when you fire your own son. Zeb Coulter, also known as Dutch Mantel in several realms. Extremely bright mind for the business. I think he could have had a backstage role with WWE, and they just terminated his on-screen character contract, but unfortunately that did not happen. Alex Riley, Miz's former protege, and you said you remember a little bit about Riley.
Yeah, I do a little bit. He had the potential, but I think me and you both can agree that if the WWE doesn't like you, potential doesn't really matter that much.
And that leads me to this one, who I think was the most surprising, not necessarily surprising of the release, but the surprising of what they did not do with him, and that is none other than Damien Sandow. He got 3 different gimmicks over. He was the savior of the intellectual masses as a heel. He was a face with Miz as Mizdow. And he was also Cody Rhodes' tag team partner as part of the Rhodes Scholars. He got over 3 separate times, and they never pulled the trigger and went with him, which is a darn shame.
Yeah, this is something I don't understand because, first of all, he had the physique, he had the charisma in the ring, and he had the mouth on the microphone. He had everything that you could want in a WWE superstar, but Vince McMahon and company was not willing to put their neck on the line for something that I guess they wasn't 100% sure about because that doesn't put the butts in the seats. And that's the only thing I could see coming from this. I mean, he had everything in terms of what you would want in a character on WWE. They don't feel like you're putting the butts in the seats, they're not going to resign you. That's just the realization of the WWE.
You know, that's the sad thing is he was over with the live audiences at the tapings. You know, anytime you would look on the internet and find something, you know, he was big with the internet fans as well. Again, not the best ring technician I've ever seen, but he was really good. And the ability to get multiple characters over to the extent that he did was absolutely almost unheard of, especially for them not to pull the trigger. Another character who was pigeonholed as one character, and that's Santino Marella.
Man, I mean, he was just fun to watch. If anything, he was more of a children's spectacle than anything else. I know he had his stuff that made him like, oh, you shouldn't say it on TV because some of his stuff is a little, I guess, sexy, I guess you could say. But, I mean, he was very fun for the people. He made people laugh. I believe he was someone who put butts in seats because if he came out, you knew you were going to have a good time for his segment that he was out there. I hate that they ruined that for him, and he's one of the ones out of this list that you have. He's my second, I think you're about to list my one that I hate to see go, one that I hate to see go from the WWE.
Definitely. Santino was a very quality comedy character, could hold his own in the ring. Hate to see him go, but he had a bad injury, I think, a year and a half ago. Had a really long, rehab time, and then they never really brought him back for anything. So sad to see him go. I'm sure he'll find work on the indies. But with that said, he actually has his own wrestling and sort of MMA type of school in Mississauga, Canada, I believe is where he resides now. He's actually Canadian. He's not Italian. I don't care what you say. He's actually Canadian. So he's got his own academy and school there, which is really cool. So best of luck to him. And another one that, frankly, he asked for his release because he was tired of being misused. His contract was not supposed to be up until, I believe, June or July, but was granted his early release. And that's none other than King Barrett, Wade Barrett, Bad News Barrett, whichever gimmick he was in at that point. I loved Bad News Barrett when he went on the podium and did the gavel and all that good stuff. But extremely talented guy. What do you remember about him, Cody?
Man, I remember him being, you talk about one of the biggest misuses of talent. That's it. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. This man was, to me, one of the most talented wrestlers, but you can't show your talent until you're in there with someone as good as you. He never got the chance to be on top. I mean, he was in some of the big matches, but it was never going to happen because they didn't want him to. They didn't want someone who spoke British. They didn't want someone who, with the physique, who they knew who was good enough. They wanted their champion always needs to be a true American hero, and that's unfortunate because that means Bad News Barrett never got the chance he deserved.
No, I believe you're 100% correct there. Definitely a surprising release. It will be interesting to see if he continues in the wrestling business or maybe pursues a little bit of acting or stunt work. I believe he's interested in that kind of stuff as well. So we'll see what happens with Wade Barrett as time goes along. As a reminder, we will be at Raw next week in Greensboro. Try to have a report up. I'll do a little recap on the CTSR Rights blog, and we'll see you guys next Monday. We'll actually maybe be kind of close to camera, so we'll see.
Absolutely. Look for this beautiful mug on the television.
Faces for radio. That's why we should take the video off when we do this. But moving on to another interesting sports story that has come along the lines in the past couple weeks. Like I said, we've been out for, 3-4 weeks now, but or maybe even more. But the NFL draft was, I guess, last week. And a big name coming into that draft was Ole Miss's Laramie Tunsil. And this guy was slated as going probably number 1, but at worst 2 or 3 in the draft. Big tackle for Ole Miss. Had an unfortunate video hit the interwebs of him hitting a bong with a gas mask on. And that pretty much said to GMs, please don't draft me. So he went all the way down to number 13. I'm sure you're at least somewhat familiar with this, Cody. What's your initial thoughts on this?
Well, my thing is I'm not surprised. I mean, especially the way Goodell is trying to be strict, even though he's just a punk. I mean, Goodell's a punk. There's no other word for it. But with GMs thinking that he's coming down harder, especially since he came down harder on his friends, the Patriots, no one wanted to take a risk on this guy. And Tunsil just got stuck in a hard situation to where he has a jerk for a friend who I believe someone is feeling entitled to whatever he's about to get with an NFL contract, and they wanted to make it known that, hey, I can control you. And I believe that's what it comes down to. Now, crazier things have happened in the NFL, so why are they targeting Tunsil so much by not drafting him when we have people who have raped women, people who have beat women, and people who have drug convictions all the time? I don't understand it, but I really hate it for the kid. He seems like a good guy, and no one could have handled the post press conference of him being drafted better than anyone else in him, and I really respect that about him, about how he handled himself. Now,
with that press conference in mind, he actually did not arrive to his originally scheduled press conference due to, quote-unquote, an allergic reaction, also known as embarrassment. But he did go to the next day's news conference and was fairly well-spoken, kind of made light about the situation. But, look, NFL rosters, I would be willing to say at least 40 to 50%, if not more, of the players smoke some sort of something. And, I mean, if they're going to start testing for pot, which they do because, who was it, Josh Cribbs and another ex-Cleveland Brown.
I mean, Le'Veon Bell from the Steelers, he can't keep away from the stuff.
Yeah, so, I mean, you have people like that who have possibly an addiction or an issue, but, I mean, you have to look at it this way, that most guys in the NFL probably use it in a recreational sense anyway. So is he that much different from most of the folks that he's going into their new fraternity? No, not really. Was it an absolutely dumb decision to have a cell phone or a camera or anything close to that? Absolutely. And then you have to look at his backstory. He has a stepfather who is essentially out to get him, make some sort of money off of him. We don't know the whole story, obviously, but, that's the story going around, is he has some relatives and or friends that want a cut of what he's about to get.
Yeah, rule number 1 of a party in college when you are a potential pro athlete, no cell phones allowed. Anyone who looks like they're texting or taking a picture, they're out. I mean, that's it. I really hate it for this kid. I feel like just the way his demeanor was during his conference, whether he was late or not, or how everything was handled. I mean, you couldn't have handled it any better compared to what he did. And I mean that with all my heart. I mean, we all try dumb stuff. Me more than you, Chris, of course. I mean, you're the good fellow of the show. But everything's happened. People do stupid stuff. There is more than one person in the NFL who's done a gas mask in the last month than we probably realize. So,
absolutely. So, and another little layer to this, as to really prove your point that he's a pretty good kid, is when you hear NCAA violation for taking money from coaches, you normally think, oh, that's not good. They just tried to keep him at that school. When in actuality, he borrowed like $300 from a coach to pay his mother's light bill. That's what that money was apparently for. So apparently the kid has a good heart. He just doesn't have a whole lot of common sense. But how many 21, 22-year-olds do? Well, you have to look at that side of the argument as well. I know we both have grown up quite a bit since our part, in college and at that age. So, you have to look at it from both sides of that spectrum.
Yeah, the kid has nowhere to go up from here. I mean, Tunsil's going to be a great player. I don't really have any doubt about that. He's going to have people who shouldn't be in his circle. That's just a part of being a pro athlete. It's going to happen. In terms of the money, from what you say, going a little bit of a broader spectrum, that's going to have absolutely nothing to do with anything, because as long as you're getting the NCAA money, the NCAA does not care. The NCAA, I believe, is also a joke about as much as Roger Goodell. So, I'll leave that at that. The NCAA, as long as you're making the money, they don't really care what you do.
Yeah, some nonprofit organization the NCAA is.
Exactly. I could not have said it better than what you just said.
Yeah, I'll actually side with you on that one completely. That's rare, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the reason this makes for such a polarizing sports show that we are glad to bring you as often as we can. So best of luck to Jeremy Tunsil. Hopefully he gets his act together a little bit, focuses on his craft and the about $12 million that he lost from going from number 1 to number 13. So I'm sure he'll think about that and say, let's focus on getting that paper instead of smoking that gas. So absolutely. So ladies and gentlemen, that just about wraps us up for today. Cody, what are you looking forward to in the next week or so, or maybe something you learned during today's show?
I tell you what, man, we get to see Raw next week, and this is the first time in a very, very long time that we've got to experience a live tape recording in Greensboro. I believe the last live recording that we had was 3 years ago. And then even in the state of North Carolina, I believe me and you went to one of the most recent ones when we went to the Thanksgiving special back in Charlotte.
Yeah, that was actually I guess that was about, 4 or 5 years ago now. And then you had Raw, I think, 3 years ago in Greensboro. But the only reason I remember that is because my lovely girlfriend and fiance at the time bought me, not front row, but basically front row of the seated section tickets, and you could see me on television. So I do remember that. So that was really neat, cool experience. We won't be quite as close this time, but we're actually going to be pretty comparable.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, how about you, man? I mean, I know you're not a soccer fan, but at least bringing up Leicester during this show, I mean, they had to bring some sort of joy to your heart, right?
Absolutely. I mean, me being the ultimate underdog myself, no, just kidding. But no, it was a really good story. I surprised myself by looking up soccer stories. And I did hear about that on several of the major media outlets. So I definitely wanted to put that one in there for you because I know your 2 cents would be extremely valued on the EPL side of things.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, we've had a little bit of a shorter show than what we do, but I feel like we sounded smart in this show. And that's a big thing for us.
That is. Rare occurrence, but we'll take it however we can get it. But as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, follow us on social media, on Twitter at CT underscore. Oh, God, that's awful. CT underscore Sports Report on Twitter, CT Sports Report on Facebook and Google. You can also find our new blog on the Blogger or Blogspot, CTSR Writes. I'll be posting stuff on there from time to time. Hopefully I'll get Cody on the writing train as well. We'll see. Even if he gives me something to write about. How about that?
I mean, I will write one article for you within the next 2 months, if that's a deal.
That's perfect.
Right.
I'll be the wordsmith of the group, and you can be the talker. How about that? But ladies and gentlemen, that just about does it for this evening's show. My name is Chris Callicutt.
And I am Cody Teague. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another incredible episode of the CT Sports Report.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.